Hello, my name is Dr. Larry Warner. I'm the Chief Impact and Equity Officer with United Way of Rhode Island, and today we are providing an overview of the Providence Equity Fund. Welcome to our RFP information session. Here's an overview of the presentation. We'll introduce you to key staff working on this RFP process and provide some background on how we arrived at the RFP. We'll provide an overview of the RFP process, the application itself, the reporting and evaluation process, some key points and dates in closing, as well as how to forward any questions that you may have. I'm glad to be joined by my colleagues Roshni Darnal, who is the Director of Community Investments at United Way of Rhode Island, as well as Dr. Adama Brown, who is our Director of Research and Data Analytics, and you'll be hearing from them shortly. United Way of Rhode Island's vision is a Rhode Island where every individual in each community has equal opportunity for justice and prosperity. In pursuit of that vision, we have a mission of uniting our community and resources to build racial equity and opportunities for all Rhode Islanders. That serves as a backdrop for the conversation and partnership that we've engaged with the City of Providence to advance their COVID-19 equity work. Guided by recommendations of the COVID-19 Resiliency and Recovery Task Force, the City of Providence allocated $10 million in November of 2022 from their American Rescue Plan Act funding in pursuit of racial equity and social equity. Of that $10 million allocation, $1.75 million were allocated originally to United Way for grant making to help close the racial wealth gap in Providence. After the change in mayoral administrations, there were unspent ARPA dollars from this funding that were then explored to allocate to United Way of Rhode Island to help advance this work, with bringing United Way's total to $3.35 million to be allocated and used by June of 2026. This partnership and funding from the city to United Way builds on our recent commitment and investment of $10 million to advance racial equity in Rhode Island. One of our key pillars and primary focus areas is economic mobility, and a large majority of that $10 million investment is serving Providence residents and nonprofit organizations. Additionally, United Way, which is headquartered in Olneyville in Providence, invests over $125,000 annually to organizations in or serving the Olneyville neighborhood where we are headquartered. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Roshni Darnal, to provide an overview of the RFP process.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon again. I would love to begin sharing about the overview of this RFP by sort of going through what the priority populations are that were part of the recommendations from the Providence Municipal Reparations Commission. The groups that were identified include African heritage people, Indigenous and tribal people, residents facing poverty and qualified census tract and neighborhoods. Throughout the RFP document, you will find us referencing these groups repeatedly and will be one of the eligibility criteria for the application. This RFP will award up to $1.5 million over the next 2 years. All of the funding that may be requested are general operating dollars, up to $50,000 per year for the next 2 years. Through this RFP, we are hoping to close critical gaps that were also identified in the report and summarized here under the 3 main focus areas, including programs addressing the racial wealth gap, efforts to mitigate the impacts of urban renewal, and enhancing the quality of and access to culturally competent resources in education and out-of-school time. The lead staff for this RFP and the entire application process will be myself and my colleague, Dr. Adama Brown. The timeline that is roughly shared here includes our community engagement process, which we conducted in Q1 of 2024. We are launching this RFP and also the application, followed by information sessions throughout this month of April. Applications will be due May of 2024, followed by a review and recommendation, culminating the month of May. Approvals and notifications are expected to be shared by June of 2024. Check-ins and final reports will be timeline for 2025 and 26. Fiscal report to the City of Providence is due by June 30th of 2026, and a final impact to the city by December 31st, 2027. More details of this and what will be required of actual reporting will be shared later in the presentation. We will take an overview of the grant application, how to access our platform, and also an overview of the application and the rubric. Over here, what is being shared is a screenshot of the platform that we use called Foundant. In order to access that platform, you will need a account. Many of our returning partners or partners who have previously applied to United Way funding should already have existing accounts. If not, an account can be created here. To access the link to this particular platform, you can go to our website where all of the information pertaining to the application and also the RFP will be shared. Upon creating the account and logging in, on the landing page in the dashboard, you will have access to all of the open opportunities at this point, and that are open at United Way at this point. And the first ones that you will see is the Providence Equity Fund. As you can see, the application begins with some eligibility questions. The application is also divided in several sections, some of which I will share a little later, but this is just a preview to show what to expect when you log in. Also wanted to share, once you log in and you have if multiple members of your team in the organization are working on the application can be shared with those team members so that the application can be completed collaboratively through the platform. This is yet another screenshot of how the questions are aligned after the eligibility section. The issue areas will be asked. So organizations will be required to pick one of the focus areas that was previously mentioned, either closing the wealth gap, addressing the negative impact of urban renewal, or advancing culturally congruent education in Providence classrooms. We are requesting that all applicants pick only one focus areas that they would like to prioritize as part of this application. Organizations will also need to have a 501c3 nonprofit status or a fiscal sponsor to be eligible to apply for this opportunity. The first section, once the application begins, are the eligibility questions. So in order to qualify, there are 4 eligibility questions that will be asked of every organization. The first being that the organizations applying are either Providence-based and or Providence serving. The population served has to be identified with the key population groups that were identified. The alignment with the RFP investment areas, which included the 3 that we just listed: closing the wealth gap, the mitigating the impacts of urban renewal, and the third being the culturally congruent educational opportunities. So the focus areas do have to align with the application, and organizations are encouraged to pick one of the focus areas that they're aligning with. And of course, every organization that applies does need to have a 501c3 nonprofit status and or a fiscal sponsor in order to be eligible. The second section of the application will ask for input and resources, which will include the organization's purpose and mission, the proposed activities that will be completed as part of receiving this funding, the community needs that these activities will address, and how this funding will help address those the needs. Any barriers or challenges to the work that might come up as part of receiving the funding and or completing the work, and the accomplishments with the target population and impact areas, if there are any, or any history of working with that target population or impact areas, can also be highlighted in the application and narrative. Future plans, data collection, budget, and supplementary documents are all part of the application as well. These are all divided in sections of the platform that was just showcased. We will ask for anticipated outcomes as part of this funding, in line with how the outcomes align with the activities and how that helps ultimately achieve one of the focus areas of the RFP. Strategies for accomplishing the goal, and the data collection, willingness to collect demographic data, and the ability also to be able to collect and report on that data, and description of systems, strategies for collecting the demographic data. All of these will be opportunities to share, write a narrative, and also pieces of work that have been previously completed can all be shared as part of the application and the narrative that is shared. A budget will be requested, and supplementary documents to support the application can also be uploaded. Because these are general operating dollars, we are not asking for program-specific budget, but an overview of the budget and how the funds will be allocated can be shared in that section. This is the scoring rubric that will be used to help us align the applications. The same scoring rubric is also shared with our reviewers. Just to quickly overview this rubric, the areas that an application will be graded will include alignment, which is alignment with the focus areas that was shared, the 3 specific focused areas, the innovation, what the proposal proposes to do, how it proposes the strategies, and what will be done to accomplish those, the impact that can be demonstrated through the strategy, equity, and budget and feasibility. The rubric is fairly self-explanatory. It's also included in the RFP document, which will be uploaded on our website, and there will be it will also be included in the application as it's being filled out in the platform. I will now pass it to my colleague, Dr. Adama Brown, to cover the reporting and evaluation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to talk about the reporting and data structure for this particular funding opportunity. Essentially, there are 3 sources of data that are really important for us to not only understand the impact of this work, but also to really tell a story about what it means to really initiate and to implement funds in the community for equity building. So there are essentially 3 times of the year where we're going to collect data. First, there will be a mid-year report, which this will be due by January 31st of 2025. This would involve having a chat conversation with the program officer for the PVD Equity Fund. This report and this chat conversation entails a series of open-ended questions, and also the grantee partner will need to provide some demographics to date at that point. There will also be an end-of-the-year report, which will be due by July 31st. Here, we're expecting to learn more about the goals, outcomes, and activities that the grantee partner experienced during the grantee year, the funding year. Also, we're wanting to know more about both perceived and actual impact, as noted by our grantee partners. And then here, we'll also want to have more demographic information to date to, again, understand better impact that these programs are having or activities are having. And then our third set of data will come from having a community participatory evaluation meeting that'll take place in June of the funding years. And this is essentially a time for our grantee partners to come together with United Way staff to really understand more deeply the successes, the barriers, the challenges, and even short-term impact of utilization of these funds. These data will be collated and collected by United Way data team and program staff, and this will be used for us to better understand and to create stories as to the impact of the Providence Equity Fund for the Providence community. In terms of reporting, data, particularly demographic data, are going to be very important. And so here, this is an example of the type of reporting that'll be required in terms of the demographics. We'll want to have information around race, ethnicity. Also, would like to collect data around income levels, participants of various programs that in terms of their income, and then also age demographics. Now, all of this data is important for two reasons. One, this is funds that are federal dollars, and so it's important for us as an organization to be able to report back to the city, who then reports back to the federal government as to how these funds were used and what type of activities and impact was discovered or made. In addition to that, this is important for our own evaluation and learning. Again, we don't want to just collect this merely for requirements, but again, to really understand the impact that this particular type of funding stream can have for the community. So with that said, internally, we're going to have some reporting to do of our own to the city. We have 4 reporting dates, October 15th, January 15th, April 15th, and July 15th. In these particular quarterly reports, we'll highlight the work to date that United Way has engaged in according to our scope of work. And we'll also provide to the city progress report as well as demographic data for each of the investment areas to, again, understand basically where we're heading through this funding opportunity. There also will be a mid-year evaluation and learning report that'll be based on those data that are collated and collected from grantee partners. And then we'll have our annual evaluation and learning reports that'll take place in the fall of the year that, again, will give us an understanding of where we are at that present time. And then eventually there will be a final impact report that'll take place toward the end of the funding cycle itself.
Thank you, Roshni and Dr. Brown. So in closing, I just want to point out a couple of key points and dates related to this RFP process and some things to keep in mind. So in addition to this recorded session, which will be available on our website and in the application portal, there will be virtual office hours available for applicants to meet with United Way staff online in order to answer questions specific to the application portal or getting clarification about different aspects of the RFP process. You can register for those online office hours through our website. There will also be at your disposal a frequently asked questions document as well as an RFP overview document, which contain the majority of the information that's needed to determine eligibility as well as to determine how best to submit a competitive application that's aligned with the RFP priorities and how they'll be evaluated. If you have questions beyond what's covered in the information sessions or office hours, you can also contact us via email at pvdequityfund@unitedwayri.org. That email inbox is monitored by multiple team members, and we will respond as soon as possible to answer your questions or to address technical assistance needs. Key dates to remember: the application deadline is May 6, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. Applications received after the time may not be able to be submitted and will be considered late. Technical assistance will be available until 5 p.m. on May 6th. That'll be the end of the business day. However, the portal will remain open for you to submit your application up until 11:59 p.m. However, responses to emails submitted to questions submitted by email may not be responded to in a timely fashion after 5 p.m. on the 6th. So please reach out early if you have any questions, and in order to avoid any technical issues or glitches with the application portal or platform, be sure to give yourself plenty of time to submit your application, and make sure that if you needed to reestablish internet connectivity or any challenges that you may encounter, that you do that with plenty of time before the submission deadline. As has been mentioned, decisions and notifications will be made in June after the review process, both by initial reviewers and then by United Way staff. The recommendations need to be approved by our board of directors and community impact committee. So that process will take us into June, after which time we'll be notifying applicants of the outcomes of this process. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us by email, pvdequityfund@unitedwayri.org. And we thank you for your interest in advancing equity in the City of Providence.